Hi, Anne Marie. Oh my God, can you even hear me? I have no voice. Bad time to try to do a video. This is Anne Marie with AM Astro, and with all of the election ridiculousness, um, and not even knowing how to process that. Come here, baby. I'm just trying to make sense out of it, like everyone else. And I know there's theories, and I know there's evidence or suspected evidence, I guess. Um, I hope you can hear me. I should have done a test shot. Anyway, so I've been looking. I've just finished. I hope you all watched my video with Joy Usher from Astromundi School, and I just finished her diploma course on timing techniques. And we talked about the Fedaria for both Trump and Kamala. And um, we then learned how to take the solar return and then using one of the faster planets, whichever one has more agency in the solar return chart for that year, which would mean either the Fedaria major lord or minor lord. And I don't think those are the right terms, but the year lord or the month lord, which it's, you know what I mean. Or the perfected year lord. So Trump is in a seventh house perfected year, which is Aquarius in his natal chart. And that's what the chart we would look at. So that's Saturn. And he's in a Sun for Daria, main for Daria. And then the sub lord, he's in a Mercury sub lord for Daria. I don't think that's the right term either, but it's a shorter term. Um, So Saturn is not fast enough to use for this timing technique. So we would use Mercury as long as Mercury is a significant player in the solar return chart. So, oh poop, I'm going to pause for a second, I think. Didn't have his charts pulled up, so now I do. So I'm going to share my screen. And so here's his natal chart. So I was talking about he's in a seventh house perfection year, which is ruled by Saturn. I use traditional rulers. Um, and then his solar return for this year, is this right? I think so. Yeah. Okay. So what I was just saying is Mercury. Okay. So the sun, he's in a sun, um, large Fedaria, and then sub Fedaria is Mercury. So he's a sun Mercury Fedaria period right now until I think it's sometime next year, sometime in 2025. I want to say April, but I think it's later than that. So we can see that Mercury has a key place in the solar return. It's conjunct his sun. So that's important. It's also forming a square to Saturn, which is the perfected lord for the year. um, the so there's its wide square down here to the moon, a wide opposition. It's closer to the Saturn opposition, 5 degrees. It's applying. So this would apply. It's an applying aspect, so it applies. But I would count this as an important aspect in the solar return. And so then this grouping here of these three planets, even though the Venus is way wide of the moon, because it's part of this grouping, we're making a wide T-square here, okay? So then we also will look at this point over here as one of the stakes, because if we've got a T square, this is opposing this, and they're squaring this, then there's another sensitive point opposing that to complete the 4 squares, right? Hopefully you're following me. Hopefully you can even hear me. The only other aspect that seems significant here is the Mars-Pluto square. So I would make stakes at 1 degree Leo, 1 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs. Okay, so we've got 14 to 25 of the mutables, 14 to cover the moon, all the way up to 25 for Venus. That's a wide section, but I think it's all important. So that's all the mutables to cover our 4 squares or stakes. And then 1 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs for the opposition of that and the opposition of that. So those are stakes, okay, that we're going to look at, and we're going to follow Mercury around the chart for the year from his birthday, from June 2024. We're going to follow Mercury around. And when Mercury hits any of those stakes, any of those sensitive parts in the solar return chart, something key would be happening in Trump's life, okay? So I'm going to pause again for a minute because I got to blow my nose. I didn't pause the right thing. Hang on. Okay, so we've established that we need to be looking at 19 to 25 degrees of the mutable signs for these stakes, and 1 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs for these stakes. Okay, so I've drawn a little, oh no, did I? What? Okay, so I've drawn a little chart. This is the solar return, and I've made a pretty little picture of where the stakes are. So you can see a little bigger. Not here. There we go. Okay. All right. So then you use your ephemeris to look up the dates that Mercury, because we've determined that Mercury as the sub-Phaedaria Lord and in relation to, in an active square to Saturn and in the conjunction to the Sun in the 12th house is significant. Okay, come on. So we're following Mercury around the chart, and when it hits these points, these are the stakes, and we would, if it's working, we would expect there to be significant events that happen when Mercury hits those points. So the first one you would think would be when there was the assassination attempt on Trump in July. But no, because that was Mercury's at 13. I believe I looked it up. Let me see. That was July 13th. And Mercury was at 16 Leo. So in here. So it's not really aspecting anything, which kind of makes me think that that's evidence that it was a setup, because there's nothing. But you would still think there'd be something, but there's nothing. And I've tried to figure that one out for a while now, but I haven't seen anything. But July 1st through 3rd, so before that assassination attempt, Mercury hit 1 to 3 degrees of Leo. So this first stake, which is squaring Mars, opposing Pluto, okay? So when Mercury got here, that was when he got hit, the Supreme Court came down with his supreme immunity thing, that he's God and he's king, or president is king and is immune from official acts, any prosecution against official acts. So that's pretty significant. So that does seem to indicate that all powerful and uh, no prosecution, Mars, Pluto. That seems to say that Mercury is working because I was worried when it didn't show up later in the month for that assassination, but it does seem to work there for the immunity. Then the next point is in September when Mercury gets down here to this point, um, where it's opposing Saturn, conjunct the moon, square itself in this whole conglomerate over here. So what happened in September 17th through 24th, there was the second assassination attempt, the golf course scenario. So um, why did that one show up and not the other one? I don't know. I don't know. But that's happening there. The next one is when Mercury gets to here, the opposition to Mars and the square to Pluto. And that was in October 13th through 15th. And that was the Coachella rally, which there was a possible another assassination attempt. There was an armed man that was detained, arrested. I'm not sure what, but that was also where he had everybody park so far away that they had to be bussed in, and then he left them all there and didn't bring the buses back. So they were all stranded. So that's significant. That's Mercury opposing Mars and squaring Pluto. So I just thought another assassination attempt possible that came up there too, but it's weird that it didn't come up over here. Okay. Those are all the past events that we can look at. The next time that Mercury is going to do something, and this is really significant, and I'm very anxious to see what happens. It's November 14th, so it's coming up next week. November 14th through the 25th, when Mercury will actually station retrograde at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. So that is in opposition to Mercury, to the Sun, like partile to the degree, and the Venus, squaring Saturn, squaring the Moon, stationing retrograde. So this is key. This is a big deal. It will, like I said, station retrograde. It will then go back, not quite to this point. How far back does it go? Let me look. I should look. I have the ephemeris right here. So we're talking about November 14th through whatever. All right, November's on the next page. Okay. So station's retrograde at 22, and then it goes back to 6 degrees. So we've got that 1 to 3. So it gets back to 6 degrees. So I wouldn't think that it's going to trigger that again. I don't think. And then stations direct, and then starts moving forward again, and then hits this spot again in January 5th, or December 27th through January 5th. So that's Mercury opposing itself and the Sun and Venus and squaring the Moon and squaring Saturn. And that is the stationing retrograde point. So is it possible that he could, that this nefarious win, election win, that things could be exposed then, and we could decide to wait a minute. I keep hearing that Meatloaf song, "Stop right there before we go any further. Do you love me? Will you love me forever?" I just have no voice. But you know the song? And then it's like, "I'll give you an answer in the morning." I don't know why. I don't know why that's coming to mind. But it's like, so uh stationing retrograde, recounting, readdressing the election. The fact that it's in the sixth house. Uh-oh, hold on a second. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry. So yeah, so that's coming up next week, and we'll see what happens between the stationing retrograde date and then when Mercury comes back there to that point, the end of the year. And obviously it goes until January 5th. So isn't January 6th when the validation comes through? So that is really key because then Mercury will move past that point. Um, So that's one of the stakes. The other dates that we can look to are when January 28th through 30th is when Mercury gets to this point here with Pluto conjunction and squaring Mars. And then February 22nd and 28th gets up here to Saturn, conjunct Saturn, opposing the moon and squaring itself and all of this stuff over here. Then it goes retrograde in Pisces, or I go, no, station's retrograde in Aries, and it comes back to 26 Pisces, um, April 6th, and then station's direct. So that would be a square to the Venus. So that could be something. Um, and then moves forward again. And then when it comes to Mars, did I have that? Did I not get that date? 1-3 Taurus. I must have skipped that somehow. What would that be? Um, so I said, what did I say? April 6th. And then we got to go to follow it down to Taurus. Okay, um, so May 11th and 12th. Not that. And I just wrote the wrong thing. Oh, okay. So May 11th and 12th is when it's conjunct Mars and square Pluto. So that's May 2025. And then when it gets to Gemini, I didn't look that one up, apparently. Oops. So we want it square 14. So 14. So that's June 1st. It will get to 14 Gemini, which would be squaring the moon. And that's before his birthday. So this, with this cold I've got going on, what Joy said is you think of your natal chart as a hanky and the solar return is like a tissue because it's only good for 1 year, right? So once he gets back to his birthday, but it will go over that first week in June, Mercury will get back to squaring the moon, and then it will pass over all of these. Before his birthday, it will already have gotten down to 10 Cancer. So it'll already be right down here. So anyway, that is a timing technique. How do I stop the share? Stop share. Okay, that is the timing technique. So we are looking at Trump for November 14th through the 25th is when Mercury stations retrograde at 22 degrees Sag, which is opposing his sun in his natal, and I mean in his solar return. And we can see then how he does if there's another assassination attempt, because 2 out of 3 of the assassination attempts showed up when Mercury was going over them. The first one, it did not. I don't know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you can hear me. And we'll get through this. Just stay positive. Just drink lots of water. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.